just finishing breakfast.
So I see.
Colder than a witch's titty out there, isn't it?
Golden Age Hollywood actors who were little people were never meant to rule the silver screen, at least not by Hollywood's brutal standards. In an era obsessed with towering masculinity, these stars stood shorter, yet cast shadows far larger than their bodies. Through raw talent, camera tricks, and unbreakable presence, they fooled audiences and built legends. But behind the glamour lay insecurity, scandal, and secrets Hollywood never wanted exposed. Humphrey Bogart. In Golden Age Hollywood, Humphrey Bogart was the definition of hard-boiled masculinity. When he walked into a scene, audiences felt his authority before he even spoke. Yet behind that indelible presence hid a carefully guarded secret. Bogart was not the towering leading man Hollywood demanded. Standing well under 6 feet, he existed in an industry where height meant power, and power meant survival. The illusion began on the set of Casablanca in 1942. Placed beside Ingrid Bergman in heels, the difference was impossible to ignore. The solution was simple and ruthless. A plain wooden box slipped beneath Bogart's feet. From that day on, the box followed him from set to set, quietly propping up a legend. Crew members joked about it, studios denied it, and Bogart himself despised it, but without it, the myth cracked. Publicists rewrote reality, listing him taller on paper, staging interviews so he always sat higher, framing shots to preserve dominance. Audiences never noticed. They didn't see a short man compensating, they saw a force of nature. Critics later wrote that Bogart's power didn't come from inches, but from attitude. The clenched jaw, the weary eyes, the voice that sounded like it had lived too long to care. Hollywood's greatest trick wasn't the box, it was convincing the world that size defined strength. Bogart proved the opposite. Shorter than the standard, burdened by the lie, he still became one of cinema's most enduring icons. When he entered a room, the illusion vanished because presence, not height, made him larger than life. Before we delve into these incredibly short Hollywood actors, please take a moment to subscribe. Your support is what motivates our team to continue creating more meaningful and informative stories like this. Kirk Douglas. In an era when Hollywood demanded towering heroes, Kirk Douglas stood slightly below the ideal, but burned with a force few could match. On screen, he was raw muscle and defiance, a man who looked born to lead rebellions. Off-screen, height haunted him. In a town where 6 feet meant authority, Douglas was constantly measured, compared, and quietly judged. The tension exploded on the set of Spartacus in 1960. Surrounded by tall Roman guards, Douglas appeared smaller than the legend he was meant to embody. The solution was pure Hollywood trickery. Trenches dug into the ground, camera angles lowered, everything engineered to lift him above the men escorting him. Douglas knew. He hated it. When a photographer once suggested a booster box, he exploded and stormed off set, pride blazing hotter than the California sun. But Douglas was never just fighting inches. He fought the system itself. When he openly credited blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo, he risked his career in defiance of Hollywood's fear. Critics mocked his size. Tabloids chased rumors, yet his reputation endured. When Douglas accepted his honorary Oscar in 1996, the room rose to its feet. That night proved the truth. Kirk Douglas may not have been the tallest man in Hollywood, but he stood among the bravest. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was one of the most recognizable figures in Golden Age Hollywood. At barely 5'5", he should have vanished beside taller stars. Yet on screen, he became enormous. As the tramp, Chaplin turned his small frame into poetry, making the world laugh, then breaking hearts with a single silent look. His size never limited his power in front of the camera. Off-screen, however, a far more troubling story followed him. In 1924, Hollywood was stunned when Chaplin secretly married Lita Grey, only 16 years old. The wedding was rushed across the Mexican border to avoid prosecution, igniting whispers that never truly faded. As years passed, rumors painted Chaplin as a man driven by obsession, drawn repeatedly to very young women. Courtrooms replaced sound stages. Headlines replaced applause. The breaking point came in the 1940s, when a paternity lawsuit dragged Chaplin through public humiliation. Though medical tests cleared him, the court ruled against him, and the damage was irreversible. To many, the beloved clown's image cracked beyond repair. FBI files and scandal sheets fueled the fire, transforming laughter into suspicion. Chaplin proved a haunting paradox. A small man who conquered the world with charm, yet carried a darkness large enough to threaten his legend. In Hollywood, even giants made of laughter could fall. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra didn't need height to command a room. His voice did that for him. At around 5'7", he was never physically imposing in an era obsessed with towering masculinity. Yet when Sinatra stepped onto a stage, the air shifted. He sang like a man who owned the night, and audiences believed it. Behind that confidence, however, lived a lifelong insecurity Hollywood never stopped poking. To protect the image, Sinatra relied on illusion. Custom elevator shoes added inches beneath his feet, carefully weighted so he wouldn't appear awkward on stage. The press noticed. Jokes spread. Headlines mocked the small man with a big ego, especially as his volatile private life spilled into public view. Explosive marriages, violent arguments, and tabloid-fueled humiliation. But the most dangerous whispers followed his shadowy connections. FBI files tracked his presence around mob figures, from Havana parties to Las Vegas back rooms. Club owners feared crossing him. Power, not size, became his armor. Sinatra leaned into harder roles, sharper edges, proving dominance didn't come from stature, but from control. In the end, Frank Sinatra became a paradox. A man physically ordinary, yet culturally untouchable. Short by Hollywood standards, feared and revered by the nation, he proved that influence casts a longer shadow than height ever could. James Cagney. James Cagney never fit Hollywood's physical ideal. Barely 5'5", compact and sharp-edged, he looked almost boyish beside the towering men cast around him. Yet the moment he moved, the screen snapped to attention. His energy detonated. Each step felt coiled, every glare loaded, like a spring ready to break bone. Size didn't matter, fear did. Studios knew his vulnerability and worked tirelessly to hide it. Press kits quietly added inches, cameras crouched low. Sets were staged to make Cagney loom larger than life, but reality slipped through. In group photos, the difference was undeniable, and whispers spread fast. The gangster boss looks like a kid. Those words cut deep. Off-screen, the insecurity hardened into a volatile temper. Cagney bristled at jokes, lunged at insults, and exploded when reminded of his stature. Rumors even swirled that he explored leg-lengthening surgery, an extreme, brutal solution driven by desperation rather than vanity. Whether true or not, the story stuck, feeding the image of a man haunted by inches. Yet Cagney refused to shrink. He turned his flaw into fire. His speed, his snap, his explosive rage became his signature. He didn't dominate by towering over others, he overwhelmed them. Decades later, he remains proof that Hollywood's smallest bodies can carry the biggest blasts. Besides the height of these actors, we'd love to know how tall you are. Drop your height in the comments below and join the conversation. Mickey Rooney. For a brief, blazing moment, Mickey Rooney ruled Hollywood. From 1939 to 1941, his name topped the box office, out-earning giants and turning him into MGM's golden child. Yet at just over 5 feet tall, Rooney carried the label he could never escape: the boy who never grew up. Audiences adored his energy, but Hollywood never stopped measuring him. Off-screen, his life spiraled with the same speed as his early fame. 8 marriages came and went in storms of jealousy, lawsuits, and humiliation. His first marriage to Ava Gardner ended quickly, leaving behind cruel jokes that followed him for decades. The press feasted, painting Rooney as small in stature and smaller in self-control. As roles dried up, Rooney sought escape in Las Vegas. Gambling tables became his refuge and his ruin. Nights blurred into debt, borrowed money, and whispered bans from casinos. A single photograph Rooney drunk. Pockets turned inside out on a Vegas curb became a symbol of Hollywood collapse. Once the industry's brightest star, Rooney became a cautionary tale. His talent was immense, his appetite larger than his frame, but fame had no mercy. In Golden Age Hollywood, being small didn't just limit his image, it magnified every fall. Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd looked like a classic American hero. Cool eyes, quiet strength, a gunfighter's calm. On screen, he stood tall against endless horizons. Off-screen, Hollywood worked overtime to protect that illusion. At barely 5'6", Ladd existed in an industry where height defined authority, and his career depended on never letting audiences notice the difference. On the set of Shane in 1951, the truth lay beneath the camera. Crew members dug trenches into the ground so Ladd's co-stars would stand lower. Every day, measurements were checked. One misstep, one wrong angle, and the myth would collapse. Studios even avoided casting actresses taller than a strict limit, sacrificing talent to preserve the fantasy. The pressure followed Ladd home. Friends recalled a man plagued by insecurity, retreating into alcohol and sleeping pills to quiet the constant comparison. At Hollywood parties, he often stood apart, aware of the whispers labeling him the little hero. The irony was cruel. A star worshipped for strength, slowly eroded by doubt. In 1964, Ladd was found dead, surrounded by pills and bottles. Official reports called it accidental, but questions lingered. His story exposed Hollywood's darkest trick, how a few missing inches could carve invisible wounds deep enough to end a legend. Edward G. Robinson. Edward G. Robinson never looked like a kingpin. Short, stocky, and far from imposing, he seemed an unlikely choice to rule the criminal underworld on screen. Yet the moment he spoke, the illusion shattered. His razor-sharp voice, burning eyes, and ruthless intensity froze theaters in silence. Size meant nothing when fear filled the room. Hollywood still tried to help the image low camera angles, taller chairs, carefully chosen co-stars, but Robinson hardly needed the tricks. Critics wrote that his presence expanded beyond his body, turning a compact frame into pure menace. In films like Little Caesar, audiences didn't see a small man, they saw power. Real life proved less forgiving. In 1952, Robinson was dragged before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Accused of leftist sympathies, he watched studios quietly close their doors. Contracts vanished. Roles shrank. The gangster king was reduced to cautious supporting parts. The irony cut deep. On screen, Robinson dominated giants. Off-screen, politics made him small. His story revealed another Hollywood truth. Height can be faked, presence can be earned, but power can be taken away in an instant. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. stood barely 5'3", but he carried a courage that towered over his era. On stage, his talent exploded, singing, dancing, acting with electric precision. Audiences cheered, yet off-stage, America wasn't ready for a man like him. In 1960, when Davis married Swedish actress May Britt, the nation erupted. Interracial marriage was still taboo, even illegal in parts of the country, and Davis paid the price. Death threats flooded his home. Venues canceled shows. Audiences walked out in protest. Sponsors vanished overnight. Hollywood smiled in public, but tightened its grip behind the scenes. The pressure crushed him inward. Nights blurred into drugs, alcohol, and secret parties that numbed the pain of rejection. Still, Davis refused to bend. He turned his small stature into defiance, cracking jokes about himself before others could, masking scars with wit. "I'm black, Jewish, one-eyed, and 5'3", he once said, "and I still make them stand and clap." The laughter was real, but so was the wound. Sammy Davis Jr. proved that true stature isn't measured in inches. It's measured in the courage to stand when the world demands you disappear. Do you know any actors who were even shorter than Sammy Davis Jr.? Let us know their names in the comments below. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton didn't conquer Hollywood with size or swagger. Barely 5'5", slim and silent, he ruled the screen with something far more dangerous: fearlessness. In the silent era, when special effects didn't exist and safety nets were rare, Keaton turned his own body into the stunt. Audiences watched in disbelief as buildings collapsed around him, trains nearly crushed him, and walls missed his skull by inches, all real, all unrehearsed. The most famous moment came during Steamboat Bill Jr., when a 2-ton wall fell straight toward him. Only a perfectly placed window saved his life. Crew members reportedly ran outside, sick with terror after the shot. Keaton didn't flinch. Pain had been trained out of him as a child in brutal vaudeville acts, where being thrown across the stage was part of the routine. But Hollywood punished what it once applauded. When MGM absorbed his studio, Keaton lost creative control. Alcohol followed. Sets replaced stages. Humiliation replaced freedom. Once the bravest man on screen, he was reduced to being tied upright just to finish a scene. Buster Keaton proved that the smallest body could carry the greatest risk. Hollywood loved the danger until it broke the man who dared it. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre never needed height to terrify audiences. Barely 5'3", round-shouldered and compact, he looked harmless at first glance. Then he lifted his eyes. In 1931, his performance in M stunned Europe. Those bulging, desperate eyes radiated guilt and madness so intensely that viewers recoiled in their seats. Terror poured from a body far smaller than the fear it created. When Lorre fled Nazi Germany and arrived in Hollywood, the contrast grew sharper. Standing beside towering actors, he seemed almost fragile, yet the camera clung to him. In films like Casablanca, his voice and stare cut through every scene. He didn't dominate with force, he invaded the mind. Off-screen, the darkness followed him home. Typecast as villains and misfits, Lorre sank into addiction, relying on morphine to survive long shooting days and the weight of expectation. Studios grew uneasy as his health declined, quietly stepping back from the man they once relied on to chill audiences. Peter Lorre proved that menace has nothing to do with size. His body was small, but his gaze reshaped cinematic fear and lingered long after the screen went dark. Is your height taller than Peter Lorre? Comment 1 below if it is. Burgess Meredith. Burgess Meredith was never small in talent. With a booming stage voice and commanding presence, he once stood among Broadway and Hollywood's finest. In the late 1930s and early 1940s, his career soared, and critics praised him as a performer who could dominate a room without raising his volume. But in Golden Age Hollywood, power didn't only depend on talent, it depended on politics. In 1951, Meredith's life collapsed when he was named during the Red Scare and pulled into the shadow of the Hollywood blacklist. Studios panicked. Contracts were canceled overnight. Friends stopped calling. A man once celebrated on red carpets suddenly found himself scraping by on radio ads and small voice roles, not because he lacked ability, but because fear had made him untouchable. For years, Meredith lived quietly, wounded by an industry that had shrunk him without mercy. Only decades later did redemption arrive. In Rocky, 1976, as the gruff trainer Mickey, he exploded back onto the screen with raw intensity. His gravelly voice, filled with bitterness and fire, earned him renewed respect and unforgettable lines. Burgess Meredith proved a cruel Hollywood truth. Sometimes the industry doesn't make you small by inches, but by silence, suspicion, and political fear. George Raft. George Raft looked like everything Hollywood wanted in a tough guy. Sharp suits, icy eyes, a coin flipping lazily through his fingers, he radiated danger without saying a word. Though not especially tall, Raft carried himself like a man who never had to prove anything. On screen, he became the face of urban menace. Off-screen, that menace followed him home. Raft didn't just play gangsters, he lived among them. He was openly linked to mob figures like Lucky Luciano and Bugsy Siegel, frequenting nightclubs and back rooms where Hollywood and the underworld blurred together. FBI files quietly tracked his movements, noting that while Raft wasn't physically imposing, his criminal connections gave him an oversized shadow. Studios were wary, but his star power kept him afloat. Then came 1942, and the decision that ended everything. Warner Brothers offered Raft the role of Rick Blaine in Casablanca. He read the script and scoffed. The character wasn't brutal enough. "Not vicious enough for me," he reportedly said. Raft passed. The role went to Humphrey Bogart, who turned it into one of the most iconic performances in film history. From that moment on, Raft's career never recovered. Roles dwindled. His image shifted from dangerous to foolish. Hollywood insiders mocked him as the man who missed immortality by inches. He aged into obscurity, remembered less for his talent than for his arrogance and disastrous judgment. George Raft proved that in Hollywood, height isn't what limits you, ego is. One bad choice can shrink a legend forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next hidden chapter of Hollywood history.